tackling cognitive limitations. We didn't evolve to individually comprehend the world we now live in. Neurological limits, psychological biases, situational complexity, all demand that we transcend cognitive shortcomings. So use psychological insights, systems thinking, science, dialogue, artificial and multiple intelligences, and any other means to collectively embrace fuller realities than we can grasp individually. My introduction to this concept came when I read a book, decade and a half ago, called New World, New Mind by Robert Ornstein and Paul Ehrlich. And in that book, they talk about how our cognitive systems, our senses and our brains, the ways we come to know things and to learn about things and to decide things, to solve problems, are cognitive systems that allow us to respond appropriately to the challenges that we meet. Those systems are basically the same as they were 10,000 years ago. But we have created environments and challenges and opportunities. I mean, our whole world we live in is not remotely what it was back in the, ancient empires and our hunter-gatherer selves. So there's a big mismatch between our environment and the ways we understand and respond to our environment. So that's what cognitive limitations is all about. And if we want to take into account what needs to be taken into account for long-term broad benefit, we need to be able to understand and observe, be mindful of our own cognitive limitations and the cognitive limitations of those around us, the cognitive limitations of the groups of people who are making decisions or shaping the context in which we live, within which our decisions are made, within which we tell ourselves stories about what's going on, within which we are trying to respond individually and collectively. The people and the culture and the processes that we use for those things are shaped by certain limitations. And if we're not aware of them, we will miss important things. So this is at the heart of this. So one of the resources I offer here is the New World, New Mind book, which is truly profound. And its focus, if I remember correctly, its focus is on education and systems thinking, because one of the biggest problems with our cognitive limitations is we are used to responding to that which is visible, which is immediate, which has to do with our own survival, has some urgency to it. And what's going on now overwhelmingly involves systemic complexity. We can't easily see through systemic complexity. We don't know that when we buy certain kinds of chocolate, we are participating in the enslavement of children in Africa. We don't know necessarily that when we're driving our cars or eating our meat, we are affecting the future of our grandchildren in terms of climate change. We may have financial troubles, but we don't know that the difference between the money we have and the money that other people have is shaping what's happening in the society through the power dynamics that shape economics and politics and governance. There's systemic barriers. There's barriers of scale. We can't see at the nanoscale. We can't see or sense at the planetary scale. We know weather, but we don't know climate. It's like all these things that go beyond the kind of cognition we needed to survive 10,000 years ago. So we have science, we have sensors all around the world, we have computers. There was one person who called them macroscopes. Microscopes look down into the small, telescopes look at the far. computers can help us see through complexity, to make sense of complexity in ways that our ordinary minds can't. We now have this developing artificial intelligence, and that has its blessings and curses, but it does have the possibility of helping us understand complexity. We have dialogue, highly developed forms of dialogue and deliberation where diverse people can bring their different pieces of the puzzle together to see more clearly. So all of that is a big part of what's needed for our tackling our cognitive limitations. Wikipedia is one of the, I'll be doing that as a resource because it's a fabulous summary of what's going on with cognitive bias, psychological term, cognitive bias. And it's not just one thing. There are dozens, I don't know, I didn't count them all. There's like around 100 different cognitive biases listed, and there's many lists on the web of these kinds of things. And things like groupthink and things like confirmation bias. Confirmation bias is you look for information that will confirm what you already know. And it's something we all do. We filter their information. We need to figure out what's relevant. And part of deciding what's relevant is finding things that make sense to us given what we already know, given what we already believe. And we reject things that don't fit what we already know and already believe. And that can be very dangerous if that's all that's going on in the making of decisions and the, trying to be wise together. We need to have more than just our own perspective included. And that's not necessarily easy. So if we take the easy road, we'll reject that. We'll always have a partial, partisan, fragmented view of what's going on. So that's the essence of this card, this pattern, and all the different tools that we can use to get beyond that. We can't do it all. We're going to miss stuff. We're going to be biased. Admitting that is the first step. Doing what we can to minimize it is the next step. And then being responsive to let other people and reality tell us what we've missed so we can then take it into account and learn how to be more humble about the challenges that we face. And yeah, that does that for that pattern. Thanks.